Everyone knows IKEA. Flat boxes, self-assembly, low prices. Its stores appear the same across continents. Its products arrive in cardboard packages, and its instructions famously use no words at all. Today, IKEA is often described as a design philosophy, a system, a carefully planned way of living. But IKEA did not begin as a design revolution. It did not start with an idea about changing homes, and its founder never set out to reinvent furniture. There was no grand vision at the beginning, no plan for global expansion, no intention to reshape an industry. What existed instead was far simpler. A young man in rural Sweden, selling everyday goods, trying to keep costs low, and trying above all not to waste money. The man's name was Ingvar Kamprad. He was born in 1926 and raised in Småland, a rural region in southern Sweden. It was not an easy place to live. The soil was poor. Farming was hard. People learned early to be careful with resources. In Småland, wasting money was not seen as a mistake. It was seen as a failure of judgment. Kamprad grew up in a family where this attitude was normal. They were not wealthy. They were not poor. They were careful. From a young age, Kamprad showed an interest in small trade. As a child, he sold matches to neighbors. He bought them cheaply in bulk. Then he sold them one by one. Later, he added other small items, pens, postcards, household odds and ends. There was nothing remarkable about this. Many children sold things. Many families encouraged it. What mattered was how Kamprad thought about it. He paid close attention to costs. He noticed which items were easy to move. He noticed which ones caused problems. He was not interested in prestige. He was not interested in craft or aesthetics. He was interested in whether something could be sold without creating unnecessary expense. Some people later described this habit as stinginess, but in the context of Småland, it was closer to discipline. Kamprad was not trying to build a brand. He was learning slowly that survival in business depended less on ambition and more on avoiding waste. That lesson stayed with him. By the time Ingvar Kamprad became a young adult, he still did not have a grand plan. He did not talk about changing how people lived. He did not talk about design movements. He talked about prices. In the late 1940s, Kamprad began selling furniture. Not because he loved furniture, but because people needed it and it could be sold by mail. Sweden was rebuilding after the war. Households needed tables, chairs, and cabinets. Most furniture, however, was expensive, and it was sold through traditional retailers with multiple layers of markup. Kamprad believed he could sell the same items for less. He ordered furniture from local manufacturers. He listed it in a catalog, and he shipped it directly to customers. There was nothing revolutionary about this approach. Mail order businesses already existed. Catalogs were common. Kamprad's advantage was not creativity, it was restraint. He kept margins thin. He avoided unnecessary features. He focused on volume. At this stage, IKEA was not a concept. It was simply a name on a catalog, a way to move products without paying for a storefront. Kamprad was not trying to redesign furniture. He was trying to remove costs. If a table could be made cheaper, he sold it. If it could not, he moved on. The goal was simple: sell more, spend less, everything else would come later. Selling furniture by mail worked, at least at first. But furniture is not like matches or pens. It is large. It is heavy, and it does not travel well. Delivery costs quickly became a problem. Shipping a table often cost more than the table itself. Chairs arrived scratched, cabinets arrived broken, returns were expensive, replacements were expensive, storage was expensive. Furniture also took up space. Warehouses filled quickly. Each item sat there waiting, tying up money without earning anything. None of these problems were dramatic. There was no crisis, no collapse. They were simply persistent. The kind of problems that appear slowly and refuse to go away. For a business built on thin margins, these small inefficiencies mattered. Kamprad did not respond with big ideas. He did not look for investors. He did not try to raise prices. Instead, he did what he had always done. He examined the costs. Where did the money go? What caused damage? What took up space? The answers were obvious. The furniture itself was the problem, not its design, not its quality, its shape. The solution did not begin as an idea, it began as an adjustment. At some point, one of IKEA's tables was prepared for shipping. Its legs were removed. The tabletop was packed separately. The package became smaller, it became flatter. It was easier to stack. It was cheaper to move. There was no announcement, no strategy document, just a practical change. If the customer could attach the legs themselves, the company could avoid damage. It could reduce shipping costs. It could store more units in the same space. The customer, in turn, would pay less. Comprad did not frame this as a new philosophy. He did not talk about user participation. He did not talk about modular design. He talked about numbers. A flatter package meant fewer trucks. Fewer trucks meant lower expenses. Lower expenses meant lower prices. The idea spread quietly. More products were adjusted. More parts were separated. Tables, shelves, beds. Each change solved a small problem. Each solution created a small saving. Customers assembled the furniture themselves because it was cheaper. Not because they enjoyed it, not because they believed in the system. There was no promise of simplicity, no lifestyle message, only a transaction. A customer accepted a bit of work in exchange for a lower price. For Comprad, that trade made sense. The change worked. Lower prices brought more customers. More customers meant more orders, and more orders created new problems. The warehouses filled faster than before. Trucks arrived more often. Handling large volumes became a daily task. To keep costs under control, IKEA needed space. Large space. Cheap space. So the company moved away from small storage facilities and into larger warehouses on the edges of towns. Places where land was cheaper and buildings could be bigger. Customers were already traveling for low prices, so IKEA asked them to do something else as well. Come inside, look at the products, pick them up yourself. Showrooms emerged not as a retail innovation, but as a way to reduce staff and handling costs. If customers could see the furniture assembled, they would understand it better. If they could collect the flat boxes themselves, the company would move inventory faster. Each step followed the same pattern. Lower prices brought crowds. Crowds required space. Space required efficiency. Efficiency reduced costs. Reduced costs allowed lower prices. The loop repeated. Self-pickup led naturally to self-assembly. Self-assembly allowed flatter packaging. Flatter packaging allowed larger volume. At no point did Comprad stop to redesign the system. He did not step back to plan an experience. He adjusted one problem at a time. Looking back, the structure seems intentional. At the time, it was not. IKEA did not become IKEA through vision. It became IKEA through pressure. Pressure to keep prices low. Pressure to avoid waste. Pressure to make small savings add up. The system formed around those pressures, one practical decision after another. As IKEA expanded, people began to notice that it felt different. The stores were larger, the process was unusual, customers walked longer distances, they carried boxes themselves. At first, this difference was not discussed as innovation, it was discussed as inconvenience. Some customers complained, others accepted it because the prices were lower. Competitors observed the model with interest, but copying it was not simple. Traditional furniture retailers were built around showrooms and city centers. They relied on sales staff. They relied on delivery services. Their costs were fixed in ways IKEA's were not. By the time it became clear that IKEA operated differently, its system was already connected end to end. Packaging influenced design. Design influenced logistics. Logistics influenced store layout. Changing one part required changing all of it. IKEA had not protected its ideas with patents. It had not hidden its methods. Everything was visible. And yet, few companies could replicate the structure without dismantling their existing businesses. Comprad did not describe this moment as success. He did not announce a turning point. He continued to focus on the same things: cost, volume, waste. The difference was not that IKEA had become unique. It was that it had become difficult to follow. Not because it was clever, but because it was consistent. What emerged was not just a successful company, it was a set of new assumptions. Furniture no longer had to arrive assembled. Customers no longer had to rely on delivery. Design no longer focused only on appearance. It had to consider packaging, stacking, transportation. IKEA products were designed to survive warehouses and trucks before they were designed to look good in a room. This approach quietly reshaped several industries at once. Self-assembly furniture became normal. What once felt like extra work became an accepted trade-off for lower prices. Large, out-of-town retail stores became common, not just for furniture, but for many types of household goods. Design for logistics became a discipline of its own. Engineers, not just designers, began influencing how products were shaped. Even consumer behavior changed. People learned to plan their purchases. to walk through stores in a fixed order, to transport large items themselves. None of this required persuasion. It happened because the system rewarded cooperation with affordability. IKEA did not create these changes through marketing. It did not argue that its way was better. It simply offered a price that made people adapt. Over time, other companies adopted pieces of the model: flat packaging, warehouse stores, self-service layouts. But the full structure remained difficult to copy because it was not a single idea. It was an accumulation, a system built from cost decisions, linked together across decades. IKEA was not invented. No one sat down to design it from scratch. There was no moment where the system appeared fully formed. It emerged. It emerged from small choices, from repeated adjustments, from a habit of avoiding unnecessary expense. A table lost its legs because shipping was too expensive. A warehouse became a store because rent was cheaper. Customers assembled furniture because it lowered the price. None of these decisions were dramatic. None of them were symbolic. They were practical. Ingvar Kamprad did not set out to change how people furnish their homes. He did not try to redefine design. He did not attempt to create a lifestyle. He tried to remove waste. Over time, those removals added up. They shaped products, they shaped stores, they shaped behavior. By the time the pattern was visible, it was already established. IKEA did not succeed because it was visionary. It succeeded because it was consistent, and because it treated cost not as a limitation, but as a guide. That is how IKEA came into existence. Not as an idea, but as a result.